Hi, this is Chris Smith with Local Joe's. At Local Joe's, we help local businesses. Hi, this is Chris Smith with Local Joe's.
This is City Pulse Newsmakers, a weekly look at the issues and the people behind them in Greater Lansing. Brought to you by City Pulse, Lansing's weekly alternative newspaper. And now, here's your host, City Pulse publisher, Burl Schwartz.
Good morning. On Tuesday, May 3rd, Lansing voters will be asked to make a $120 million investment in their school system. What will they get for their money? Joining me today are the superintendent of the Lansing School District, Yvonne Kamal-Kanual. Welcome back to you.
Good morning.
And the two of the leaders of the bond drive on May 3rd, they are former State Representative Joan Bauer. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And first-time guest, Lansing attorney Jack Davis, who was president of the Board of Education.
Thank you.
Well, it's nice to have all three of you here with me. It's obviously a very important issue that's been long discussed, and in October the board went forward with this proposal. Mm-hmm. And we're going to turn first to you, Yvonne, to explain what it is voters will be asked to approve on May 3rd.
So as you mentioned already, Burl, that there's a $120 million bond proposal. It will fold in the sinking fund that the public currently pays for, and will ask for a slight increase of 0.75 mils to generate the $120 million for what we need to do in the Lansing School District, which will include furniture for all of our classrooms, new furniture for all of our classrooms, which the kids are very excited about because I've done conversations with students and they're really excited about the idea of getting new furniture. It will upgrade all of our infrastructure with technology so that we have a better access points, more access points so that we can do one-on-one computing and instruction. It will upgrade our security systems with swipe cards in all of our buildings. Some of our buildings have them, others don't. Cameras, things like that. But the really general improvements with HVAC and window efficiencies and lighting efficiencies and some of the general improvements that need to happen in around the district in different schools. But the meat of it is really about supporting the pathway promise. And what we've designed is a 3-path approach to career and college readiness for our students, where at the end of the line, after they graduate from Eastern or Sexton or Everett, they are eligible for a Promise Scholarship. And so the bond proposal is, how do we fashion facility upgrades that can better support these 3 different pathways for our students. The Eastern pathway is International Baccalaureate, Chinese Immersion, and Biotechnologies, as well as a comprehensive high school. The Everett pathway is New Tech High and Visual and Performing Arts, as well as a comprehensive educational platform. And Sexton is STEM, STEAM, skilled trades, and manufacturing, as well as a comprehensive high school. So these 3 pathways, students get to choose their passion, they get to choose their interest, and they get to choose their path. And that's what the pathway promise is all about.
You talk in terms of the high schools. Do these pathways begin before high school?
Yes, we have several schools that are already positioned in the STEM and STEAM focus areas. We also have a global studies school, and we have applied for magnet grant programs to go even earlier in pre-K3, so that we're developing these feeder systems into these pathways so that students have some real, projects-based learning focus on what their education system will look like.
Jack, you have served on the school board for many years. You're not on it right now, but you led the school board for a number of those years. How important is this vote on May 3rd?
Well, we think it's real important. The district is, under Yvonne's leadership, is making a lot of progress. Graduation rates are improving. total academic test scores are improving, and she's doing a really good job. We've been working on this for a long time, and we've already had 2 bonds that the voters have approved, which did a lot to bring the schools along. And this newest initiative is very important for the progress in the schools. And in my way of thinking, we've got to start thinking more about careers for the students. The isolated academic concept was popular for a long time. It was popular in my day. I have a lot of respect for it since I grew up in that culture. But now it's clear that we have a lot of job openings, and we need students to fill them, and they need to have some specific career preparation, which takes a lot of advanced education, but not necessarily a college degree. So we're working in that area, and I think that's very important.
Joan, you before you were state representative, you served on city council, you're president of city council. How important is this bond issue to the city of Lansing?
Extremely important. And we know that for any city, it's important to have a good, strong, viable public education system. And we periodically, as the citizens, we have to take a look at it and see how we can support it. In this case, we know that we need to do an infusion of some more resources. I think back, my dad taught at Lansing Everett for 30 years. And I remember when the building opened, and it was a beautiful new high school. I mean, this was many, many years ago. And I've been in Everett recently, and it needs, all the things that we're talking about doing are very important. And they're important to send a message to our students that they matter, that their education is important, it's important to us. And just from a selfish perspective, I mean, I'm a longtime resident of Lansing. We want a strong city. We want our property values to remain strong. We want to have workers who have been educated and can take the jobs, whether they're, as Jack said, whether they're in more technical areas or they go on to advanced education. So this is very important to our city and the success of Lansing, the continued viability of our city.
I think Everett actually got nailed, its entrance got nailed once as an eyesore.
I would believe it, right.
Hopefully that, whatever that disrepair was, has been fixed. Yvonne, we have seen, of course, over the years, the number of students has declined. We see a lot of the better off families sending their kids out of the district. How is this bond issue likely to affect enrollment?
So, well, hopefully it will bring some people back, for one thing, and hopefully it will keep people who are currently here. One of the things that is a phenomenon, Mr. Davis mentioned that, content-based instruction is sort of a thing of the past, and we're now moving into a new world, and indeed we are. It's the world of choice, and students need to have a lot of viable choices in terms of what their learning agenda could look like. And I think families look for choice. They look for places where their kids can flourish, where their children can flourish and find passion in their education. And so this whole pathway promises about 3 really important things. One is providing choices for children and their families on what is important about what they want to learn about, more about what their skill sets are, how they want to explore different ways of learning. Number 2, it will be based in partnerships with our business community. We live in Lansing. It's just an incredible thriving community with business and industry. We have wonderful companies that we can partner with, and yet our school system hasn't really partnered in very strategic ways with these different businesses. We want mentoring opportunities and internships for our students so that they get a taste of the real world while they're still in high school. And the third thing is at the end of graduation graduation, they're eligible for a Promise Scholarship. And very few places do that in the state of Michigan, Kalamazoo, and I think maybe a little bit on the west side of the state. But in the mid-Michigan area, no one else offers that opportunity for our students. So this whole idea about the Pathway Promise and the bond proposal is a way to girder that system, those pathways. I was at Everett Saturday afternoon to watch the musical, Memphis musical, and those kids are so talented. And yet I kind of looked at the auditorium and I thought, oh, if we only had. We only had. So the talent base that we have in our school system is just phenomenal. And I think the resources need to, strengthen that talent base that we have in our school district. So will it bring people back? I think so. Will it keep people here? I believe it will.
Jack, one of the big issues building up to this $120 million bond issue was how many high schools do we need? Mm-hmm. And it seems that we need 3, even though it sounded for a long time like we needed fewer than 3. What happened? Why are we ending up with 3 high schools when there was considerable evidence that we don't need 3?
Well, Yvonne knows far more about this. When I was president, we didn't have a whole lot of discussion about having only 2 high schools. I will say this, that the way Yvonne or the superintendent has arranged things, we have the high schools serve as the centerpiece of each of the pathway objectives, and that's not just high school students. The way it's currently being organized, we have, instead of the old high school concept, we have integration of other grade levels in the schools, because we're trying to have each one have the opportunity to go in a particular pathway, and it's better to have it in one building. So when I was in high school, we only had 3 grades, by the way, and then it became 4 grades, adding the 9th graders. Now they're being added, there's been more grades are being added to the high schools to integrate so that we have what is truly a pathway. And that's good for the city, that's good for the educational concept, and that's why we have students coming into the high schools in greater population amounts, and that's why it's good to have 3 high schools. And it's good for the community we have 3 high schools, because each one of the high schools serves as a very important feature in the 3 neighborhoods. And to close them off would be dramatic to each region. So you can't have high schools just because closing them would be a dramatic setback to the neighborhood. But the way it's being proposed, we also now are having the population going into the schools that supports the number of high schools we have.
Joan, you have been a politician for a couple of decades now. Would what the bond issue is proposing, this $120 million, would that have flown if any of these high schools had been closed?
I think I also want to commend the superintendent and the committee that came up with the plan, because I think they did listen to the citizens, and because I'm sure there was a great deal of thought to, well, we even talked about building a brand new high school, one brand new high school. There was been a lot of debate and discussion, but knowing the neighborhoods as I do, and I know how important the high schools, all schools are to neighborhoods. So I also think it was a good decision. And there are now enough students because of the reconfiguration of the 7 through 12 and the pathways that I think it was a very good decision. I don't know if it would have, I don't know if it would have flown. That's not really I think the bigger question is that we really listened and came up with a plan that the people who live in our city are much more favorable.
I want to talk a bit about what the new Eastern High School will be like. I understand a little. I know that it is the core of it is going to be Pattongill, which presumably will then have its own campus. Tell us more about that, Yvonne.
So yes, the new Eastern High School will be just 1,000 feet down the street over to Pattongill. We'll add a couple of wings and some, or 3-floor wings, and another gym, large competitive gym. Create some new office spaces and cafeteria areas, as well as locker rooms and things like that. So there's 22 acres around Pattongill, the current Pattongill, where we can expand to create a brand new high school environment for the kids from Eastern. And then right across the street is Fairview Elementary School with 15 acres around it. And so it will be expanded to become a pre-K-8 environment. So we'll have a pre-K-12 campus right on that side of town, one right across the street from the other. Also part of the bond proposal is to utilize the 38 acres of the Eastern property that remain for athletic facilities for Eastern. So they'll get their own football stadium finally, and track and a competitive soccer field, baseball field. The field house still is part of the Lansing School District, so we'll still be able to maintain activities there. One of the things that came out of the bond committee that I think was really so innovative was the idea that the field house could be more of a community center now for activities during the day, so that maybe if we partnered with the Y, we could have neighborhood people come into the field house and utilize it more frequently. Right now, because there isn't enough room at Eastern High School, the current site where Eastern High School is, for all of the gym classes, kids actually leave the main building and walk over to the field house for their PE classes and then walk back to the high school because there isn't enough room for, and hasn't been for a long time. So that building, the field house, is utilized by students, and now when everyone moves to Pattongill, everything will be enclosed in that same building, and then the field house will be opened up for other activities. Would you mind if I just touched on the single high school conversation?
Go right ahead, sure.
So of course there was a lot of debate, as Joan said, a lot of debate about the single high school idea, and I just happen to believe in smaller high schools are better for our kids. I'm not a 3,000, 4,000 student high school proponent. When you're in a high school that big, then there are very few opportunities for individuals to participate in some of the extracurricular activities. When you have 3 high schools, there's more options for participation, and we know that extracurricular participation is one of the hallmarks of kids being able to graduate. The other thing is, abandoning the neighborhoods, I think, would be just, very, very detrimental to our city. And then the other question is, where would a high school go that would serve the entire community? That's been a 3 and 4 high school community for many, many years. And the last thing, pretty much to me, is why would we spend the entire bond amount on a single building for high school, when in fact we have so many other needs in our district, and everyone should get a piece of this bond. This cannot be a one high school bond. It really needed to be a bond where everyone can get the benefit from this bond and from the community's investment.
Before we finish with Eastern, I know that both you, Joan and Jack were among the committee that met with Sparrow. So if you would, please tell us, what is the outlook now for the old Eastern High School, Joan?
Well, I'm very optimistic. It was just the...
and I should say to our audience, Sparrow Health System purchased Eastern High School, although the school system may continue to rent it for up to 5 years.
Right. No, I'm very optimistic. Sparrow is a great corporate partner, a great they do wonderful things for our city. They have agreed, well, not even agreed, it was, they were very positive about, as they move forward, getting involvement, setting up, hearing from people, from stakeholders, involving people in the decision on what will happen to the building. I'm hoping, and I know Jack is too, that we can work with them, that they will eventually consider saving some of the facades, saving some of the building. I mean, that would be my hope for historic preservation. It's a beautiful, beautiful building, and especially the part that's on the corner. So I'm still optimistic that something could work out, and they've been. It's just an initial meeting, but I was very pleased afterward.
And we had our previous television show actually was on that topic, and I think there is a sense that, in the neighborhood
Right.
that what you're saying is where things are headed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not aware of organized opposition to the bond issue, but I did receive a letter from someone I gather some of you are familiar with, because I gather he's been a regular at school board meetings for many years, Gil Northrup, who is an Eastern High School alumnus. And he writes in a, is that wrong? I thought.
No, I was just going to say, to my knowledge, in the last 4 years that I've been superintendent, Mr. Northrup has not been to any board meetings, but he may have attended other meetings as well. He may have attended other meetings.
Misunderstood, but he sent me a letter on March 16th, said vote no on May tax bond. And so I will throw these out here, and because some of this may be misinformation, and you certainly will have an opportunity to rebut anything he says. The millage amount for the May bond will be as high as 3.43 mills, or $343 per $100,000 of taxable value for as long as 25 years. The $35 per year amount being claimed by the school board and their proxies is a gross and, I believe, intentional miscalculation. Would someone care to respond to that?
So, I'm just not sure how to phrase this, but we have the lowest tax debt ratio of 18 school districts in the region, and when that, I can give you the actual numbers. We currently have 3.84 mills at this point, with includes the sinking fund of 1.5 mills, and the past millage, which built Pattongill School, and a number of other things that were done. So that brought our millage rate to 3.84. We're asking for a 0.75 increase of that, bringing it to just a little over 4.5%, or sorry, 4.5 mills, excuse me. The millage that we're asking for, the 0.75 increase, in fact, is an additional $36 a year for a $100,000 home. It equals about $3 extra a month from what people are currently paying. So I'm not really quite sure where that 300 and X amount comes from. And even with that, we'll still have the lowest tax debt ratio of any school district in the region.
All right. His second point is the superintendent of Lansing Schools admitted in a May 15th bond meeting at Eastern High that the school district may have to ask for another sinking fund millage. Did you admit anything like that?
Well, I think it was May 14th, but it wasn't May, it was March. It was March.
Yeah, he said March 15th.
Yeah, well, whatever. Yeah. Actually, what I said was that because there were questions about that sinking fund millages actually pay for upkeep of buildings. And so the question that Mr. Northrup originally posed was, well, if this bond does pass, that won't take care of the ongoing upkeep of schools that are typical that a sinking fund would normally pay for. And I believe my response to that, and I got maybe a couple of witnesses here, my response to that was, in 8 years, the Pattongill bond loan will fall off because it will have been paid for. And at that point, if the district should decide to go out for a sinking fund for this upkeep, general upkeep over the next 10 years, because there are now limits on sinking fund requests, that would be a time when the district might be able to do that.
Okay.
So I guess that was
money can be used during that period. A large portion of that period can be used to do the upkeep that the sinking fund might have otherwise been used for.
All right. He goes on to say the current sinking fund, 1.5 mils or $150 per thousand taxable value, is not being renewed. Future infrastructure repairs not covered by the bond will have to be withdrawn from the operational budget. Art and music have already been given to volunteers, and swimming dropped at 2 of the schools. Other sports and class sizes will likely be included in the next round of cuts.
Okay, so there's been a district-wide swim team for a number of years. I don't think that that's anything new, and it's not related to any of that. The art and music program, regardless of bond or no bond, the bond can't pay for personnel, and neither can a sinking fund. So that let's just keep that separate. Perhaps the idea is that if operational budget, if the general fund pays for upkeep of schools, then that would cut into the instructional programs. In fact, we're adding 6 new positions for art and music. There was a great sacrifice that the teachers made with that program 4 years ago when we were really strapped for our fund equity. But that has since leveled itself off, and we've increased art and music in our schools, not with volunteers, with actual certified teachers doing that. I'd be happy to give that information later on. So in terms of art and music, we're putting it back in little by little. In terms of a swim team, we just invested in a brand new competitive pool at Hill, which the Lansing Legacy swim team gets to use for competitive swimming. So I think we've done pretty well with the investments.
All right, we have about 2 minutes to go. He says Eastern High will be demolished by Sparrow shortly after a bond is passed. I think, first of all, we know that you're going to have to keep using Sparrow. And secondly, Sparrow has made it quite clear that it has no plans yet for that property and will consider neighborhood input. So I've answered that question for you.
Thank you. That's true.
And some of this relates to what Sparrow may or may not do, and I think we'll pass on that. Sexton High will likewise face demolition in the very near future. Is there any basis for that
No
claim?
basis whatsoever.
Okay.
None.
It says bond fine print allows the school board to close and sell the building under certain conditions.
No,
Nothing.
there's nothing
Okay.
in the bond fine print.
All right. The middle school building on Marshall Street cannot be properly converted into a high school within the proposed budget. The classrooms are too small, lockers wholly inadequate, security problems will abound when students are forced to wear coats and jackets to class.
No and no and no, because we have architects working on this plan. They've done all of the square footage analysis. New areas will be added that are lacking. No.
Are
not a
there
problem.
alternative plans for future bond proposals?
Not right now.
Okay. I had to wear a jacket to school for the 5 years that I went to a school that required it. I never posed a security risk to anyone. I want to thank you all for being
Thank
here,
you,
Jack,
Earl.
Yvonne, and
Thank
Joan.
you.
It's great
Thank
to
you.
see all of you again. Again, the bond issue will be on the ballot May 3rd, I think. Is it the only thing on the ballot?
It is the
It'll
only
be
thing
hard
on.
to miss. And you'll be reading more about this in City Pulse in the coming weeks. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great weekend.